In this video, we're going to talk about a couple of strategies for learning new code on your own. This is really a core element of what we'd like you to learn as a coder, is how to expand your skills on your own. There's a couple of different methods that I want to talk about here. One is emulating code that you see in someone else's work and learning to use that by starting with an example. And the other way is to use a tutorial or a standard to learn about a new property or something that you didn't know you could do with code. Let's look at each of those two possibilities. We're going to take a look at a page. So this is a page that's working fine, doesn't have any errors in it, but we're going to spiff it up a little bit by learning some new code. So first of all, let's say you visit another page and you notice a behavior that you like. In this case, let's focus on how that navigation bar stays at the top of the page even while you continue to scroll on the page. That's pretty neat, and we'd like to try to do that on our page. Well, what can you do? Remember, we talked about there's these tools when you pull up the contextual menu in the browser, and there's one that lets you inspect and another one that allows you to view the page source. Either one can be helpful in this case. This time, let's look at the view page source view. And in this particular page, the CSS is located not right up at the top, but in its own file. And we'll learn how to do that in the next class. So here's the full CSS for that page, and we do want to know the styling for this section, right? Remember, when we're doing this, the content that's in there is this, the links back 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can find that, right? We can find that text in our page, and we see that it's in a section called nav. And we have talked about nav sections before, even though we don't have one on this particular page we're looking at. We've talked about that before. So we know what that is. And so what we want to do is here we would like to find, and I just did a Control F, we'd like to find where the nav code is located. So here we have it. And we can literally just copy this and put it in our own page to try to test it out. So we don't need all of that code. We want to narrow it down and figure out exactly which piece is causing the specific behavior that we're interested in. But start by just taking it all, and then we can eliminate the bits that we either know what they do or that we don't think are relevant. So I'm going to come into my, over on my code side here. I'm going to come to the bottom of my CSS section. I'm just going to paste this in. So now I've got this nav code over here. Okay, so margin bottom, we know what that does. That's just going to create space underneath. We know what the background color does, and we know what the color does. So these are not causing the behavior that we're interested in. Font family, that just changes what the font looks like, and that looks like some fancy font that we don't know if we have that or not. So I'm just going to get rid of that. Text align center, we know what that does. Font size, we know what that does. Padding at the top and bottom, that just creates a little bit of extra space. We can account for all of this code, but these are the two that may be new to us that we might suspect are responsible for the behavior that we want to emulate. So let's specifically try to take a look at these two, position sticky and then top 0px, and make sure that we understand what these do, and to see if these are the ones that we're interested in. Okay, now if we want to actually apply this, we need to add a nav section to our file. So we're going to go in here, and again, if you want, you can even go back and see, well, here was the header, and then the nav was right after the header and right before the first article. Okay, so we're going to go right after our header. We're going to put in a nav section. And we're taking a look here, and they have these A codes. We don't know what those are, but it doesn't seem to have a paragraph code or anything. So let's just type in some text. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. I'm going to return to our page and reload it. Okay, so we created a navigation section. And if you take a look up here at the code, it does some things that we expect. It's got a black background. It's got white text. It has centered text. The text has a font size, so we're willing to believe that's a 1.5 EM. There's a little bit of padding above and below the writing. And then there is that margin at the bottom, okay? All right, now let's see if it's got that behavior that we were, aha, yes it does. Okay, now let's test our theory. Is this the code that is making that difference? I'm gonna go ahead and cut this, but I'm leaving it on the clipboard. I haven't erased it. I didn't just hit delete, I hit Control X, so it's still on my clipboard and I can paste it back in. I'm gonna go ahead and save the file, reload. Okay, so now that I took out that line of code, it doesn't do that behavior anymore. So that lets us know that this, in fact, is the thing that is causing this to stick to the top, thus position sticky. Okay, so now let's figure out how this part comes into play. Do we need this? Is this related to the behavior that we're seeing? Is this what we want? There's a couple things we can do. We can completely cut it like I did before. We can also change the value of it and just see if that makes a difference. So I'm going to go ahead and change the value in this case. Ah, look what happened. So instead of sticking to the top, it's sticking kind of, you know, a little bit away from the top. So I have a theory about that. Let's put in another 0 and go ahead and reload this guy. Oh yeah. So this line of code is actually telling it where to stick. So it doesn't have to stick to the top. It was only doing that because we had this line of code in here, top equals 0px. So now we know that in order to get something to stick like that at the top of our page, we need position sticky, and we need top, and we need to set that to 0 so that it actually goes all the way to the top. Now, if for some reason we wanted it to go elsewhere than all the way to the top, we could use, you know, we could use that in a different way to make something stick in, you know, a little bit further down on the page. We might need that at some point. So it's good, even when you're learning a new code, even if it does what you want it to do, it's still good to test it out and see exactly what's working and why, so that you can adapt that code and really make it your own later on. So that's an example of taking a code from someone else's page and playing with it on our own page and really figuring out how it works. The other thing that I want to show you is how to use something like a tutorial or a standard to learn a new code. Just investigate and see what things do. If you recall, this W3 Schools tutorial is one of the resources that I mentioned earlier on in the class. If you take a look here, I'm on the CSS tutorial. It has a whole bunch of different categories, and we can use those categories to find something that we'd like to learn more about. In this case, since we've been focusing on text formatting mainly in this class, let's take a look at the CSS text. It's showing us that there are actually a whole bunch of different things we can do with text: alignment, decoration, transformation, text spacing, and text shadow. Now, you might not have realized that there were some of these things we could do. Color, we have a pretty good handle on. It talks about hex values and RGB values. There's some different things. You can read through that if you're interested in that one. Text alignment is showing you that you can align text in the center, to the left, or to the right. And we actually saw that in the last example with that centered text. So we know that one, we're aware of that one. Text decoration, that's stuff like overline, line through, so that would be like strike through. There's also this one, and let me just say a moment about this. You should never use underlining just as a decoration. The convention is just far too strong that underlined text on a web page is a link to something else. So when people see underlined text on a website, they're expecting to be able to click on that and go somewhere. So just don't ever use that as merely a decoration. And that also is part of our accessibility guidelines, our universal design. So just take that one out of your mind as just decorative. It even tells you in this note down here, right? But it is possible to. Those are some possibilities for text decoration. Text transformation. So this might be one that would be fun. We can transform text into all uppercase, for example. So we could take an example of the code here. And let's say we can leave it in our nav since we're playing with that anyway. Go ahead and save that and take a look at what happened up here. So that changed it to all uppercase. So that's cool. Didn't know that we could do that. We can do that. Text spacing. So you can add indentation And that would be like on a first line of a paragraph, for example. And again, typically on websites, you use a line break between paragraphs to indicate new paragraphs. But if you really wanted to do an indent, you could. You can also do letter spacing. And that was on this first page where it's got these, like the sort of spacing between the text. That was accomplished with this code for the text spacing and adding a little bit of letter spacing in between. And you can even decrease the letter spacing by using negative values. This one seems really fun though, text shadow. And again, this might be something that you just figured out because you looked through here and saw that you could do this. Okay, so that's kind of cool. You can have a shadow effect. Notice it's giving you a couple of different values here for the horizontal and vertical. Then you can even add a color, and you can even add a blur effect to the shadow, which actually comes third. So the blur effect, so if we did the full line, it would be horizontal, vertical, blur, and color. And again, they're using word names for the colors, but that really limits you. If you use the hexadecimal, you can really have the full range of colors. Let's apply this to our header text right here to make that a little bit fancier. First of all, how would we apply it to that specific part of the code? Well, remember we've changed this so there's only one H1 on the entire page now. So we could apply this style just to our H1 tag, and that should have the desired effect. So if we come back up in our CSS, we find where we have our H1 styling. And I'm going to go ahead and just paste in exactly what we had here, but I don't want to just leave it at that. I'd like to do some of our own formatting with this. So first of all, since we've got our title in white, let's make our shadow black. That's, we know. And then let's do some different values for the horizontal and for the vertical so that we can tell the difference. And let's take out the blur for now, just so we can really understand and see what's going on. Okay, so that is a longer or a larger value for the horizontal than the vertical. Let's do the opposite. Let's make this really big. So let's switch that up. Okay, so that really gives us a good sense, right? Now we can really see the floating. And that might be just a little bit too much, but I kind of like it with the drop shadow. So let's reduce it a bit. Okay, so good. Let's put in a little bit of blur. Let's do like a 3px on that and see what happens. Okay, pretty cool. All right, so that is a new code that we just learned. We just took a look at what it talked about in the tutorial. We grabbed a line of code, we decided where we wanted to apply it on our page, and we put it in the appropriate section of our CSS, and then we tested out the different values and changed them so that we could really see the effect that that would have. That's the basic strategy for learning code from someone else's page, and also learning code from a tutorial or from a specification where you're getting just information about what a code does. As I mentioned at the beginning, learning code on your own is a really important part of what we want you to be learning in these coding classes, and hopefully those two methods can really help you get started learning some new things.